Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Salt and Burn This Supernatural Rewatch podcast. I'm Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so before we get into the second episode rewatch, there was just one minor thing that I wanted to retouch on from the first one.
Well, you didn't tell me we were going back.
I know, well, I didn't know until I was editing it, just 20 minutes before we hopped on here. But it's not anything like from the episode, really.
Do I need to study my notes again?
No. It was just, remember when we were like, what the hell is EMF and EVP and all that?
Yes.
So I did actually look it up, and just so we know, and just so I can correct myself because I was wrong. EMF is electromagnetic field, not frequency, which is what I said. And EVP is electronic voice phenomenon.
Ah.
Right.
All right, so we were, if you mushed them all together, we were right about one.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Okay, no, that's great.
Do a little correction,
That's great. So unrelated, and I don't mean to jump like way ahead in the series and stuff, but remember I told you my one personal ghost story where I heard like my name being called?
Yes.
Well, I just watched an episode in season 15 where literally a woman is walking down the alley and a voice says, Valerie.
No way.
Yeah, she's totally grabbed by a ghost calling her name, and the woman's name is Valerie.
Oh my God.
So I was like, what?
Did you get chills up and down your spine?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, I could blame it on Google listening in on our phone calls, but that's not what it was at all.
Yeah, no. And just for reference for any listeners, Valerie has not yet finished the series.
Please don't.
Yes. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just saying I have finished the series. I watched it live when it was on. She's still catching up. What episode are you on right now?
I think 18. So I only have 19, 20 to go.
Oh my God, you're so close.
I know, so close. But it's so well, I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's listening into the podcast from the beginning. It's great. I mean, it's absolutely great. And it's an emotional roller coaster, as almost every season is. But yes,
well, I can't wait until you finish it so we can talk about it offline, off the podcast. We don't want to jump too far ahead.
No.
Maybe
we need to jump ahead. I just had to say that. I just had to say I can't believe that I told you the story about a ghost or something calling my name EVP.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
And then the next thing I watch is an episode where a woman named Valerie on the show gets her name called out by
a ghost. Oh my God, too funny. Yes. And creepy. All right. So with all that being said, let's get into the episode 2 rewatch. Wendigo. Okay, so season 1, episode 2, Wendigo. Sam and Dean follow the coordinates in their father's journal and land in Colorado, where they investigate the disappearance of several campers. This episode was directed again by David Nutter and written by Eric Kripke, along with Ron Milbauer and Terry Hughes Burton.
I have to say, one of the things I love about the show is they do recaps.
Yes.
Instead of like a long title sequence where you get to see the stars of the show's name on, credits and stuff like that, they do a recap of what's happened so far. And granted, only one episode has happened so far, but they did a recap.
Yeah. I do enjoy the recaps, especially when I've been away from the show for a while and can't quite remember what was going on. But yes.
It's nice because it pulls you back in. It pulls you back into their stories. And it also gives you little Easter eggs about what the episode is going to be touching on.
Yes.
Like especially as it gets further into the seasons, there's so many things that affects their lives that they have to pull out what they're gonna what previous storylines are gonna be tapped into again.
Right. So they'll pull one from like season 3 when we're just about to watch an episode in season 7. you
Mhm.
know.
Yep,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
like that too.
Yeah, they do a little callback, and so it just a little refresher, and I love that about this show.
Hmm.
I love that about this show.
Okay, so before we get into it though, I do have a little map quest moment,
Aha.
a brief one. They're headed to Blackwater Ridge, Colorado, but when they're talking about like where it is or like where they are, I can't quite remember what it is, but Grand Junction, Colorado comes up. And I have several friends who lived there at one point. I think a couple still do, and I've been there a few times. It's a quaint little town. I really like it. Very kind of like an artistic pocket.
Yes.
It's like very small.
Yes, I've driven through a couple of times on some of my cross country jaunts. Um, I don't think I've ever stopped, but I've seen the signs.
Yes.
Um, so, um, although what's interesting is since we're talking about geography, in John Winchester's journal, it does talk about the coordinates 35 minus 111
Mm-hmm.
as the coordinates of where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's actually not Colorado. It's Arizona.
Oh my God.
Yep, I nerded out. I looked it up.
No, good for you.
Um,
I did not do that.
I absolutely, because they make such a point of it. I mean, they don't just
Yeah.
mention it; it's written in his journal, and they show you the journal. You can see the numbers. They
Uh-huh.
talk about it. Um, but yeah, 35 minus 111 is in Arizona, and it's near the meteor crater. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Oh, vaguely. Mm-hmm.
There's one huge meteor strike
That's
in
funny.
Arizona, and it's this giant crater, which I have been to. Um, but yeah, so not Colorado. Just FYI.
Oh, that's funny.
Total plot point, and they couldn't even.
They couldn't even look at a map and
Oh,
oh
I love it.
dear.
I
Maybe
love
they
it. So
needed MapQuest.
yeah.
Then
So sorry for the little nerd out thing on my part.
no, I love that. Um oh yeah, but speaking of nerding out, I could not nerd out as hard with this one because there was no commentary available. As far as I know, not on the DVD anyway. The
Oh
first
no,
season there's only like one other one, so I'm just gonna have to go with my own two eyes, which are, unreliable at best.
it's okay. I couldn't find any outtakes either. So
Okay.
I think they were still being very serious about
Yeah.
shooting and a shooting schedule and,
Yes.
being professionals.
Yes. So on our end, this might be a short episode because I
Yep.
also didn't write too much in these notes. But right off the start, we see these kids camping somewhere
Yes.
in the dark, playing video games and blah blah blah. Uh, one of them, I noticed another like one of these one-off actors, uh, is the one in the bandana.
Yes.
He is the late Corey Monteith, which was on Glee, and I really loved that show at the time. I was
Uh,
really into that show, but he was the one who, sadly, the first one that passed of a drug addiction.
oh,
That was
it's funny. I
go ahead.
thought he looked familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah. Well,
So
I don't think you really watched Glee, but anyway, that was interesting to see him be like, oh yeah,
oh
because
yeah.
that's the only other thing that I've seen Corey Monteith in personally. Not saying that
That's
he
all he
wasn't.
did. That's
Yeah.
all you've seen.
Hmm.
So it's funny you talk about the guys camping, and it is. It's three guys in a tent, and they're quote roughing it, but they have their video games
Yeah.
and their satellite phones and stuff. And one guy, um, something always tragic has to happen in these episodes, right? So the one guy decides he needs to take we'll call it a bio break. Has to
Take a
step
leak.
outside the tent. Yes, take a leak. Step outside the tent to take a leak, which is of course, don't ever go outside. But here's what gets me. He goes outside and he doesn't go more than 10 feet away from the tent before he decides to pee against a tree. He doesn't go into the woods, and I'm like, it's such a guy thing to do
It
is to
is a
like
good,
not
yeah.
even leave your own encampment and just
Just
pee
take a
against.
few steps and pee
Yeah,
somewhere.
I was like, God, man, men in camping.
I would
That's
say that would be the joy of having external
plumbing.
plumbing. Yes.
Yes, yes, but it was just one of those. I just looked at that and I was like, ah, boys are gross.
Yeah.
Just, just that is one of my pet peeves in life is that guys can just pee wherever they want. It is a pet peeve of mine.
See,
I
I'm
mean,
jealous of that.
bravo. Oh. Maybe deep down I am jealous, but doesn't mean I don't uh I don't applaud them when they do it, you know. But I just thought that was funny. I was like, typical.
Well, thankfully for you, he gets his comeuppance, I guess, for peeing just a few steps away from the tent. He gets
Indeed.
tackled by a mysterious something or other.
I did have a true jump out moment though. So boy number one who's peeing against a tree gets grabbed by
Hmm.
something we don't know what, you know,
Hmm.
or the scream. You hear the scream from it, you know, inside the tent, you hear the scream from outside, and so body number one gets taken. And then there's all sorts of clawing and groaning and tents ripping and bodies being flung. Like
Yeah.
that one guy gets grabbed like and pulled straight
Hmm.
through the tent.
Yeah.
Very, very big. But did you have anything else to say about that scene? Because I was going to jump real quick to my jump out moment.
No, I had a comment that was like, "What book is that?" Because that one guy looks like he's reading like a really heavy duty book, and I never
Oh,
did find out what it was. Like I wrote what I could see, which was Joseph Campbell, the hero, and then that's it.
oh.
And I had meant to go look it up later, and I just now remembered it looking. But no, that's it. That's all I have for the
Oh, maybe it was just a contrast to the boys playing video games and he's sitting there reading some sort of thick, heady book,
right.
being a
Ooh, but
brain.
maybe I do have a note about this jump out moment. But go ahead.
Oh, so genuine jump out moment is Sam is at Jess's grave and he's, saying, sorry, I wish I could have saved you. And he goes to lay flowers down on the grave. And much to my chagrin, a hand bursts out of the grave and grabs him. And I literally said, blah.
Yes, I have a note that says word for word, "Holy shit, that hand legit scared me."
Yes, I mean, legitimately, I was like, God, it got me.
Yeah, I didn't
It got me.
remember it. It was something that totally escaped my memory from the first time watching it.
Yep. Totally hokey. When you go back and watch it again, you're like, ah. But if you're not
Yeah,
expecting it, it
yeah,
totally worked.
yep.
Totally gets you.
Hmm.
And then it turns out it was just a dream. Um, but still, that was an aha moment that after it happened, I kind of laughed at myself for genuinely having jumped.
Yeah. I
Oh,
also noticed, and this is maybe inappropriate to mention, but Jessica has the exact same middle name that I do,
why
which
would
is,
that be inappropriate?
I don't know. I just noticed it. It was Lee, spelled Lee.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember a colleague of ours who made fun of me for that middle name because he was just like, I think you were meant to be a boy. It's if he
Oh,
had it in his head that Lee, for some reason, was a masculine spelling.
huh.
I was like, I know several people, gender inclusive, who have that middle name.
That's really funny. Wow, this show is all about you. Your name is
It
Sam, your
is.
middle name is Lee, you
Mm-hmm.
know Lawrence, Kansas. You don't
Yeah.
you don't drive an Impala, do you?
No,
No. All right.
and I've
Well,
never really cared about cars either.
I have to say what's funny about that car and as much driving as they do end up doing, guarantee you that car doesn't have cruise control. You ever driven a car without cruise control?
Yeah, I rarely ever use the cruise control in the cars that I do have.
Even like for your long distance driving and stuff?
Sometimes it depends on if there's like nobody on the highway,
Mhm.
then yeah, I'll use it. But I honestly, I really remember that I have it. But then again, I haven't taken a really long road trip in several years.
Gotcha.
And, driving through New York or even like Jersey and Pennsylvania, it's not really a good idea, I think, to put cruise
You
control.
don't really have the opportunity to go
No.
to cruise anywhere, let
Yes.
alone control your cruising. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's just it's on long trips.
Hmm.
It's that's like one of the not benefits. It's a
It's a
luxury.
luxury.
Yes, it's a luxury to be able to get out of your car and walk and not be lame because you've been stomping your foot to the pedal.
I don't. My next note says Sam is being the student and doing research, and I can't quite. I mean, he must have been in the car or something, or in the newspapers, like looking up like these missing campers and stuff like that. I honestly, there were moments of time in this episode where I wasn't taking notes. I was just watching it,
Yeah.
even though I knew, just like I should be taking notes, but I didn't really have anything to take a note about.
Right. Right. There was I think what happens is they drive to Colorado, and they get to the location. You get to, what is it, Blackwater, Black
Uh-huh.
Wall
Blackwater
Street.
Ridge.
Yeah. They get there, and there's like a lodge, a ranger's lodge. And so they're there, and they're reading up on
Oh, that's
bear
right.
attacks and things like that. It's funny because I made a note. I said, oh, Dean says, "Hey, check out the size of this bear," because there's like a giant taxidermied bear
Mm-hmm.
inside the. Oh wait, no, it's a picture. It's a
It was
picture
a
of a guy
photo.
with
Yeah,
a
yeah,
big,
yeah.
big bear. He's like, check out the size of this bear. But rather than listen to Sam, who is like imparting all these really important details about the local area and the folklore and all this stuff, he's like, "Look at this bear." And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so much like my brother. Also very much like my nephews. It's one of those, during a safety inspection or during the safety lecture, they're like, and they're
Uh-huh.
not looking, they're not paying attention. Look at this bear.
Yeah.
Where do these tracks go?
Yeah.
So yeah, so much like my brother, which is not paying attention to the important details being spoken. I also they pull out, when they go to talk to the main ranger, they pull out two, their second set of fake IDs,
Uh-huh.
which is they're now rangers. So they've gone from being FBI agents or marshals. Were they marshals in the first
You're
episode?
marshals, yeah.
Marshals to now they're rangers.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, their second fake ID, and
Right.
it starts.
Yeah, we should track that. We should track like how many times, how many
How
fake
many
IDs or
different IDs?
personas that they have.
Absolutely,
That would be a fun thing to track. I mean, maybe
absolutely.
only useful in the first few seasons or so.
Because they do reuse a lot of them.
Yeah, then they just kind of become FBI
Yeah,
all the time.
it's just funny now because they're so young, that when they have these IDs, that they're clearly too young to be those personalities. Later in the seasons, you're like, oh, it's not that much of a stretch anymore until they start using the rock and roll names and
Yeah. And then I have another note that says Horn Dog Dean. I assume when he meets the chick of the brother who's missing.
Yes.
It's another thing to track is like, Jesus, how many women is he going to chase?
It's amazing. It's well, I think I do go back and I mention this later, that the fact that for somebody who is so good looking, and so dashing, I think his overall douchebagness keeps him from being like a boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, he does, he
For,
also doesn't have a desire to be a
well,
boyfriend.
right. But luckily none of the girls have enough self-respect to not also like clamor after him.
Yeah,
They realize that he's
this one kind of did, but I feel like in the future that doesn't hold true. If my memory serves me correctly, but I don't know, we'll see.
okay.
I also wanted to point out, and this is like way skipping ahead. They've already spoken to the girl and the other little brother, and then they find out, oh, it's their brother that's been missing, and he's always on top of communication. So she knows that something's wrong, and they're gonna go look for them the next day.
Hmm.
But then Sam and Dean have gone to look for the guy who did survive one of these escapes or one of these attacks. I'm sorry, but
Yes. They found somebody who his parents were killed, but he
yes,
survived one
but
of
he
these attacks.
survived.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give a shout out to that scar because I thought that it was done really well. Like the scar that was
Oh,
like on
the
his shoulder.
claw mark.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So shout out to the makeup artist for that. I really
Yes.
thought that
Good
was well done.
job. Well, I was going to do a little shout out to the set dresses,
Mm-hmm.
the set dressers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because when Sam and Dean go to this guy's house, I don't know if it's an apartment or a cabin. To me, it looked like a cabin at first.
Yeah.
But he's this guy who's been traumatized as a young kid, and he obviously hasn't succeeded in life. He's kind of a hermit. And so his cabin's like all dark and dingy, But over his front door is a horseshoe, except the horseshoe is upside down, which is not good luck. Horseshoes are for good luck, but you have to have a horseshoe with the U facing up, so the
Yeah, the
luck
points
stays
shaping up.
inside. Yeah, the points shoot up so that the luck stays in. If the horseshoe points down, all the luck runs out. So this poor bastard thought enough to, hang a horseshoe over his front door for good luck, but he actually hung it in the bad luck
Yeah.
position, which I just wanted to shout out to the set dressers, because it made me just think this guy has nothing's going to be redeemed for him.
Yeah.
His life is just not going to go. It's not going to turn around, even with Sam and Dean in it.
Yeah. That was a good catch on your part.
Why, thank you. I do have an I spy eye sometimes.
Yeah. I didn't know that about the horseshoe until you said something. And then I looked it up just to see, like, is that way everywhere? Like every culture or whatever that, does the horseshoe for good luck. And yeah,
Mhm.
pretty much it was overwhelming. No, it's got to be a U shape instead of
An
the
upside down
points.
U. Yeah. Which it's funny because it goes against how you would actually hang something,
Yeah.
because you can just hang it on the hook. So Sam and Dean are still looking for their dad, but because they stumble upon this mystery, they decide to head out under the guise of looking for this chick's brother
Hmm.
and hoping that they find their dad along the way.
Right. And then I have a note that they must have done like a cross shot over to the kids in the cave. Like a
The,
that's got to be a name too. It's something that we know, the audience knows that they don't know, that the characters don't
the
know.
mhm.
That's a term that I need to look up
Okay.
for next time.
Now we see that there are still some boys alive.
Yeah, at least two at this point, until you hear those awful sounds that I absolutely hate, like the squishing and the
Bone crunching.
bone crunching and the flesh ripping, and then he's
Yes.
screaming, and then the screaming stops, but then those noises keep continuing. I do not like those sounds, and it's not a scary thing. It's more like a EBGB, like, ooh,
Yeah.
it makes my
Yeah.
skin crawl.
It's very visceral.
Yeah.
It's like if you were there, you would have gotten something on you. Ugh.
Yeah. So anyway, that's happening. Well,
So one of the boys gets torn to shreds.
yes.
So it looks like there's only one boy left, and it would be the brother. But he had to witness that, which is pretty awful.
Yeah.
So then there's a lot of walking in the woods, looking for clues and for signs. And
Oh, I do have a note here, a gross Dean moment. And I think it's when he's talking to the girl and he says something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm usually not honest with girls."
yeah.
Something that typical douchebag guy line is. And you
Mhm.
know what? She kind of falls for it
Yep.
a
Yep.
little bit. So
Yep. You are right.
there was
You
a touch. She was just like, "Well, maybe I was wrong about you," or something like that. I don't know
yeah,
it word for word anymore, but I do remember. I wrote it down. I was just like, gross Dean moment and gross quote unquote typical girl moment.
yeah. Because she wants to believe him that he's being honest with her because of her.
Yes, because she's special.
She's special. I do think it's funny that she points out that as they're hiking, he's wearing biker boots and jeans and
Yes,
not.
didn't bring any provisions, and then he pulls out this giant bag of M&Ms.
Gigantic bag of M&Ms. But you know what? In my book, that is provision enough, because you know what? They were M&Ms, not just regular M&Ms. He's got
Yes,
the
that has
protein.
often been a provision in our rehearsal time.
Oh my
Peanut
gosh.
M&Ms.
Gotten us through many a session. So as they're tromping through the woods, they come across the destroyed campsite, the boys' campsite. And I have to say, I was a little disappointed in how the campsite was portrayed. Take away my previous thumbs up for the set decks, because and it may not have been their fault. It could have just been, I felt like they kept using the same camera shot over and over again.
Yes, I have the tent camera shots are not great.
Yeah, they were like repetitive.
Yeah.
They kept showing the same like scratch marks in the tent, like the same bloody scratch marks, that same overturned chair. And it wasn't like scary, and it wasn't as
It was
horrific.
shaky. Yeah, it looked homemade almost, and not in a good way. It was a standout camera moment. and not a good standout. It
Right.
definitely caught my eye and like, ooh, this doesn't really fit in with
With
the rest
yeah,
of.
the rest of the texture
Hmm.
of the yeah, and I wonder if it was just like a bad studio shot, like bad indoor studio lighting,
Yeah, it
you
could
know,
have been maybe
them
like an after shot, after they had already filmed it. That could be a possibility. And they
yeah,
probably didn't have like the biggest budget at the time, so
probably
it's
not.
forgivable.
It absolutely, but it's funny that you and I both noticed it, but I
Uh-huh.
was like, kind of
And
bad.
I'm not even like a camera person. Like I usually don't notice things like that. So for a layperson like me, and maybe you, I don't know, you catch camera things more often than I do, but for a layperson like me to catch it,
It's enough. Yeah.
yeah, it's enough.
It was enough that you're like, "Burp," took
Mm-hmm.
you right out. Took you
Mm-hmm.
right out of the moment. So they find the camp, it's all torn up, and while they're in there scratching their heads and looking for clues, they hear a boy's voice crying out for help. So they go running off in the direction of this voice, only to have the voice stop. And they realize, oop, that was probably a trick.
Yes,
So they run.
Sam was the one who caught on. He was just like, "Oh shit, everybody, we gotta go back." They do, and all of their stuff is missing.
Yep. So I made a note that this was a moment where Sam takes the lead. He steps
Mm.
in and takes the lead, not necessarily as in out front walking on the trails, but he starts to figure out what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
like what it is. It's not a bear. It's not a skinwalker. It's not a spirit that they thought. But they still don't know exactly what it is. But it's Sam who is figuring this out.
Yeah.
So I was like, Sam steps up, takes the lead, and Dean even points it out, which I thought was a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
That Dean points it out that Sam is figuring the details out, and it's like, let's check Dad's journal, let's see what he had to say, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have here at 22 minutes 49 seconds ish is the first mention of the Wendigo, which I'll get to in a second. But also the first time that they actually use Dad's journal, except for like the coordinates that he put in there, but like to actually use it as like a reference point or like a
mm-hmm,
study guide or
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
as
absolutely,
their
yeah.
research material. This is the first time that they actually use it.
We have an upcoming catchphrase.
Oh, I know. It's so exciting. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about the Wendigo a little bit because
Okay,
I
do it.
did some research
Yay!
on if a Wendigo was an actual thing, and if so, what was it, and did they twist it at all? So they were kind of right. And I didn't do in-depth research, although I did kind of go into a rabbit hole because it was so interesting. But they mention, like Wendigo is a Cree Indian word, and it's what did they say? Like a man who resorted to cannibalism
Ooh,
to survive, and in turn became this thing called a Wendigo. That is more or less on point, actually. But this legend, this I don't know what you want to call it, but it's mostly contained up in Canada and in like Minnesota, so kind of like north, like wintry kind of areas. So that was kind of contained within those tribes, like up in that regional area.
it's interesting that it spread to more than just one. Like it wasn't just
Yeah,
one grouping. It
one
was
group. Hmm. But
wow.
it is interesting. But Dean did say like, oh, I've never seen one this far east before in Colorado. So that
Right,
was nice that they made a point like, oh, they didn't just pull it from
right.
somewhere and put it in Colorado. They made a
Right.
mention of like, oh, I've never seen one this
And one of
far.
the reasons why they didn't think it was a Wendigo to begin with is because of they were in Colorado and Wendigos didn't uh, fall in that location.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in some instances, there were legends that the Wendigos had powers and skills, like near perfect hunter, very, very stealthy. They could control the weather, and they know every single inch of their own territory.
Did it say anything about the voice being able to like mimic the voice
Mm-mm,
mimicking? Oh, so
mm-mm, I didn't.
that was a TV.
I think that was a supernatural thing.
Okay.
There was also, I guess, a condition, like something that they called a Wendigo condition, like a psychosis almost, where in times of, maybe starvation or severe weather, like severe cold weather, actual people can kind of develop this madness, for a very loose term, that then they just start craving human flesh. And then they have such a fear that they're going to become a Wendigo or a cannibal that, and this was back way, 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 way back then, like in the 1600s and even the 1800s, there were a couple reports of people actually, Wendigoism. And really the only solution at the time was to put them to death.
Oh my gosh.
They felt like there was no hope for them.
So it's kind of like, if a bear gets a taste of human flesh, they have to put the bear down.
Yeah. Now I want to sidebar to something else, because Dean in the camp, he encircles it in something that he calls Anasazi symbols.
Yeah.
The Anasazi people were back in like the 1500 BC in New Mexico. So they're like Southwest tribe. Their descendants are like the Hopi, the Pueblo, things of that nature. And the only thing that kind of connects cannibalism with them is at some point they just became so paranoid amongst themselves. Again, I am completely, what's the word? Just, there was a lot of reading on this. I'm like compartmentalizing some of this. There's a lot of paranoia in the leadership. And so sometimes they would take social outcasts and execute them and even cannibalize them.
Right. Well, I know that there was some societies that would, if they cannibalized their enemies, it was because they would then, they felt that they were taking the enemy's power by eating them, so that they gained more strength by eating their enemies.
Right. I don't know if that was the case with this, but when I was reading this, I was kind of like, why would the Anasazi symbols do anything with this Wendigo if it was, originally from way up north and westish? And then I stumbled on this thesis that someone kind of wrote about this exact same thing. So hold on, I'm going to pull it up just so I can credit them. It's from Eastern Michigan University. It's titled "Cannibalism in Contact Narratives and the Evolution of the Wendigo" by
gosh.
I know, by Michelle Leitz. And she even mentioned in her papers, it's like, the connection between Anasazi symbols and the Wendigo is unclear and never really explained later on. So, and she was kind of saying, so this just kind of says, people appropriate native culture from whatever fits their own narrative.
Yep.
So this was absolutely a moment of that.
Love that.
Sorry that was a long sidebar.
No.
But this really was kind of fascinating.
No, that's great, because my question was, where did he come up with those symbols, those sigils, and why did he think that it would work? Right. It was just in the writer's research, we're just like, oh, cannibals. Maybe we'll just, I don't even think those symbols are an actual thing. I shouldn't say that. They could be actual symbols, but they were definitely not used for this kind of purpose. Right. It was just an association of, how do we physicalize a protection? With two tribes that never really, I don't think, had any cross paths at all. Right. Right. Wow. But interesting, though, that there was even the cannibalism as a narrative. That still fascinates me. That I didn't know about that. So thank you, Sami, for your research.
Oh, you're welcome. But yes, now we're going to come back to the catchphrase.
Catchphrase. You can do it. It's all you.
26 minutes, 17 seconds. Saving people, hunting things, the family business.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love it.
So, side note, we were working together on a show. I want to say we were at Wolf Trap, and maybe it was at USC. Doesn't matter. Sorry. But you were wearing a Supernatural shirt.
Yes.
And you're like, don't you recognize the shirt? And I was looking at it, and I was like, I recognize the symbol, the anti-possession symbol on it. But at that time, the saving people, hunting things, the family business wasn't a catchphrase I knew yet.
Yeah.
And so I just remember it was like an aha moment for me that I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is something I can hold on to. Sami's wearing the shirt. I can, and it just made me want to tune in more and watch more of the show. And but I do remember that moment. You're like, no, it's a Supernatural shirt. Duh, duh, Valerie. Yeah, but you were like that was the first merch shirt, that I saw. But also it was an aha moment for me of this is a cool chick that and that Sammy's all right.
Thank you, Hot Topic,
There
which
you go.
is where that shirt came from.
The hot topical.
But no, you're right. I think that didn't quite become a catchphrase until later. For some reason, it wasn't until later that people really latched on to it. And then the show latched onto it and were making fun of it. Because at one point, Crowley says it many, many seasons later, poking
Yep.
fun at them. So,
Yep.
but here's where it first appears.
Yeah, it's because I think the show, diverted from being only a monster chasing show to a relationship show, a family relationship
Right.
show. And so giving them, embracing the family business, it wasn't just about hunting, it was about family.
They also say it quite a bit. And I think, you know what, now that I'm saying this, I think this is how and why it became a catchphrase. Because they started using it in the recaps a lot, like this exact line.
To start establishing
I think so.
a
And then
relationship.
I think but then people were just like, there
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
Something
'Cause-
catchy, something fun.
And it just cements them as heroes because they're
Yeah.
saving people.
Yes.
2617 is exactly what I wrote down as
Great.
well.
Perfect.
So, and I also said, and the dad mystery deepens because
Yeah.
they realize after they say this, and they said it to the sister, right? The saving people, hunting things, family. No,
No,
it
it's
was
just to them, to each other.
Dean
Dean says
saying
it to Sam.
like,
Mhm.
this is why we have to, because Sam wanted to just stop once they figured out it was a Wendigo. He's like, Dad's not here. We have to go. This isn't taking us to Dad. And that's when Sam said, but we have to help these people because we save people, we hunt things. It's a family business.
Yes.
But then the mystery of Dad deepens. Like, where is he? If Dad isn't here hunting this thing,
Yeah.
and he's not at the coordinates that was left in the journal, where is he?
Right.
Why isn't he there?
I also noted this kind of feels like a chick flick moment between these two brothers.
Yeah, but it's also another reason why I had a hard time seeing Sam as the younger brother because he was really in charge here. He was the one figuring things out. He was the gung ho. He was being kind of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy, even though not really shooting. But he was being kind of macho, more macho than like Dean. Dean was still kind of laid back and douchey, but Sam was like motivated and angry and wanted to meet his own needs. Go find Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also felt like here Dean. Oh my
The
God.
other brother.
Dan. Yeah. I also felt here like Dean did kind of turn into older brother a little bit. He's just like, listen, I know you're angry and I know you want to find Dad. So do I. But I think that there's something else he wants us to do here and we're already here. So let's, he was trying to calm Sam down, I think, because Sam was so angry, because his girlfriend had just died. I would be angry too. I would not know what to do. I would just be so full of rage and be like, I need answers. I need revenge. I need closure.
Yes. After that moment when they decide to keep looking for the brother, the missing brother who's been taken by the Wendigo, there's a lot of running and screaming in the woods. They're being chased by the Wendigo. And I said, why I could never be on this show. Couple of reasons. One, I'd be falling down a lot. So I would be the one they'd have to pick up and, come on. I'd be saying, no, leave me, because I would be tripping and falling. Or I'd be the actress who was like always looking down to make sure I didn't trip and fall over something. So you wouldn't be able to use me for that. And thirdly, I can't scream. When I'm scared, I don't scream. I don't know how girls see something and go, ah, and scream. I make noises. I make weird, guttural, noise. The only way I can describe it is noises. Like, yeah. So I could never be like the girl screaming in the woods because I would just be like, I mean, I make. You've heard me. Like when we did the scary theme park. Corn maze, and I was like, I'm not going to be scared because I can see where they're going to jump out at me. And then when they did jump out at me, I literally like tore my pants off trying to get away from.
Yes.
And did I scream? No, I'm sure I made weird googly noises.
Right.
great googly moogly. And yeah, so this is why I could never be on Supernatural.
Oh yeah, I curse when I'm scared, so I don't think they could use me either.
Take 27.
Yes.
So a funny moment for me,
Mm.
after the running and the screaming, they chase down the Wendigo at like an abandoned mine shaft or something, some sort of, and they're standing outside of it, and the signs out front say, "Warning, danger, do not enter." I was like, could they have not, foreshadowed any bigger? It's that same, like, the monsters in the closet, so you're in the movie theater saying, don't open the door, don't open the door, and then
Yeah.
they go and open the door. I mean,
Yeah.
literally the sign says do not enter, and they're
I
like,
know.
well, I guess we got to go in.
I have written down, what do you mean shrug and then just go in? Because they just look at each other and do that. Well, I don't know, maybe we'll just go in here.
Guess we got to go. We saw the M&Ms. Oh, that was the other thing.
Oh, the M&Ms, yeah.
Oh, that's right, because Dean gets snatched by the Wendigo.
Yes.
So, snatched by the Wendigo, as does the sister, right? Is it the sister? Somebody. Yeah, it's the sister and Dean get snatched by the Wendigo. But Dean has the state of mind to drop M&Ms as a trail, as breadcrumbs. I was like, what? This is a creature that moves, faster than light, not faster than light, but super fast. It's vicious. It tears people apart.
Yeah.
But Dean's like, I'm going to drop some M&Ms.
Right.
That irked me a little bit. And the little brother, by the way, totally creeped me out the entire time. I kept expecting him to be some sort of evil assassin or something.
Yeah, he had an awkward presence about him.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention, while they're talking about like how crazy good a hunter this Wendigo is.
Oh, right.
I wrote down that this Wendigo thing is really powerful, and I'd argue more so than many of like their evil bosses, that they fight later on, like the main villain of the season or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Like this thing is really, really powerful, like hard to find, hard to catch, and can find you and catch you in a heartbeat without anybody really knowing.
And has animal strength, like brute animal strength.
Yes. So that was just interesting. It's like this one-off creature. I don't think he shows up again except in like mention.
Just in name. Yeah. Because it grabbed it grabbed all three of the boys in the beginning.
Yeah.
And dragged them off. And then it grabbed the ranger guy who was supposed to be helping find the brother.
Yeah.
And then grabs both Dean and the girl at the same time and drags them off with apparently no problems.
Right.
Well, I wonder if that harkens back to, eating the flesh of your enemies gives you strength, even if
maybe.
It's an evil, malfeasance. Not malfeasance, that's not the right word. I have all these great words in my head, but they're stuck there. They're not making
it's because we haven't talked to people in months. I don't know how to use words anymore.
It's crazy.
Like it's really hard.
This has been such an eye-opening experience.
Oh my God, I was editing this and I'm like, how many times do I say or so or just not speak?
Do you hear me sniffing? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was another thing I wanted to mention that was the supernatural twist to the Wendigo, was the fact that he hunts only every 20 years or whatever it was.
23 or 27, some odd numbered years. Yeah.
And that they like store or they ration out their prey throughout that time, which is kind of the exact opposite of the nature of the original myth, is that he's so gluttonous and greedy and he just wants to eat and eat and eat and eat. And a couple of them mentioned that, once it eats its first meal, then it grows in proportion to the meal that it just ate. So then it's just always hungry. It can never feel.
It never will fill because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yes. So they put the twist on this, to leave some survivors around, I think, because otherwise no one would survive.
Right. The entire population would be gone, and there would just be this,
no one would go
Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, they're the size of this bear. Yeah. Warning, danger, do not enter. I guess we'll go in.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. More running, more screaming.
And then they crash into a pile of skulls. Or the little brother does, I think, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then Sammy's just like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry." It's like, I'm sorry, but a giant pile of skulls does not equal. Oh, it's okay,
Well, they're
don't
already dead,
worry.
so it's okay. He's full. Yeah. Don't worry, your brother isn't part of that pile. Your brother and your sister.
That was a moment that made me think of Indiana Jones, though.
Well, there's always.
There is
Oh,
always moment, but
oh,
just the few scenes that like Indiana Jones goes into a crypt and there's like bones piling over him, or
yeah, and very casual about using the bones
yes,
for something like a
yes,
torch. Yeah,
yes, exactly.
here, just use this bone and wrap it in, this shroud of Turin and set it on fire. Don't worry,
Yep,
not
yep,
human bones that you're holding.
yep.
Yeah,
That was a touch of this.
very casual with the handling of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So unfortunately, I tend to make notes when it's funny. I think.
Hmm.
Uh, so once they cut Dean down and they cut the sister down, and now they're trying to figure out how do we, because we can't run from this thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to make it out alive if we just try to run from this thing. We have to kill it. Bullets don't kill it. Chopping its head off doesn't kill it. What kills it? A flare gun.
Of course.
Of course, and they just happen to have
Mm-hmm.
a flare gun. Now they have one flare gun, and Dean apparently makes like a Molotov cocktail. Did you notice that?
Yes, he said like we got to torch the sucker.
Yes.
Right, and he's got it in his hand. Yes.
Yes. And there's a couple funny moments here. Dean decides to quote sacrifice himself, like to be the bait.
Mm-hmm.
Lead the Wendigo off in one direction so the rest of the group, the Scoobies, can escape out the back. So Dean goes running off down these mine tunnels, yelling all sorts of stupid macho guy things. And the worst thing he said was, "You like white meat, bitch?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" It just think of Friends, an episode where the boys Chandler, Ross, and Joey are watching Die Hard,
Uh-huh.
and they said, at the end of the movie, they're like, quick, let's watch something different before Joey starts calling everybody bitch.
No.
And then Joey's like, "What are you talking about, bitch?" And that's all I could hear was Joey's voice when Dean's like, "You like white meat, bitch?" I was like, "Why? Why
That's
do guys
funny.
have, like?" Oh, it was bad. It was just it just cracked me up.
Yeah. A little bit of bad writing right there.
Yeah, yeah. And then Dean goes running off, and Sam is like, I don't know why. Does Sam go after Dean at one point?
I don't remember.
He ends up coming face to face with the Wendigo by mistake, and he tries to shoot the Wendigo and he misses because the Wendigo kind of snuck up on him.
Yeah.
And he misses, and as he's running away, he stumbles across Dean's broken Molotov cocktail, and he picks it up, and it's one of those, oh no, if Dean doesn't have his Molotov cocktail, what happened to him. But when Sam picks it up, I swear to God, it looked like a used condom. And I was like, that's an odd thing to stop and pick up when you're running for your life from a Wendigo.
Oh my God. I did not.
Like I said, the things I note, unfortunately, aren't always like in the interest.
I did not make that connection even
I'm
one
so
little
sorry.
bit.
I totally was like, why would he stop and pick that up?
I think what I was looking at was I was actually looking at how creepy that this creature actually was because you couldn't see his face. And I think that was probably a budget thing because he was obviously more CGI than what the previous monster was, which was just a ghost, sometimes phasing in and out of a skeleton. Yeah. But here it was just like an actual creature, looked like a really long, stretched out golem from Lord of the Rings a little bit, but you couldn't quite tell because his face was in the shadows. And that was really scary to me, that you couldn't quite see what he was.
Yeah. It's like all you had was the image from the drawings in the journal of what they thought it was. And that just looked like, pencil stick man.
Yeah.
But scary pencil stick man.
Uh-huh.
And then when you see it like corporeal, once you see his body, you're like, oh, because it's tall, it's skinny, it's creepy.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the whole stretched out golem. That's a really good description of it.
Thanks.
Who kills it?
It's Dean, right?
It is Dean.
Okay. I couldn't honest. I remember him shooting the flare gun.
Yep.
And then that was that.
Yep. And it sets him on fire and he burns up and he dies. Hooray!
Hooray! It's a little weird that they didn't even look for the other kids just in case they were alive. You know, they found the brother and they were said, "Great, job done, mission accomplished," but they didn't even look to see if the other two had survived.
Well, maybe I'm thinking since the brother did witness one of his friends at least get eaten in front of
Yeah,
him.
maybe he told them.
Like,
It's just like,
yeah,
nope,
like,
I'm the only one. Yeah.
off camera, come here.
Yeah.
Out of the shot of the microphones. But yeah, but then they had to make up a story when when everyone's back at the lodge and stuff. They have to make up a story for the police that it was a bear or something.
Yeah. Big bear, the biggest bear I've ever seen.
And then Dean still is a douchebag.
Yes.
Yes, he had an opportunity to snuggle with the girl in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
and he douched out. And she's like, "God, why'd you have to stomp on our moment?"
Yep. I'm glad that she just smooched him on the cheek and not like full on make out.
Yes, yeah. No, it was more of a brother sister,
Yeah.
moment, which I like, because she also does go off, not arm in arm, but like she and her brother go off supporting themselves, like they
Yeah.
go and climb into the ambulance, but they're helping each other. They're
Right.
supporting each other. It's
Right.
nice. It kind of redeemed the little brother in my eyes, because I was like, oh, that little brother just creeped me out. So another funny, wait, looking. Oh no, we already talked about that. Okay. As like one of the throwaway walkway lines, Dean said, "I hate camping." After the whole experience, and I was like, at what point were you camping?
Right.
You were running and screaming and shooting things in the woods. There was not a single
No.
camping moment. In fact, nobody except for the brothers. I mean, except for the brother,
The older brother.
the older brother in the very beginning. That was camping. Nobody else in that episode.
Yeah, no one was camping.
So I was like, what? I hate camping. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should define what camping is.
Right. I want to give another shout out to the props guys, because their license plate on the car is mostly actually a Kansas license plate. So I think every state, and I know Kansas at least, would kind of change out their license plates every now and then.
You mean like
the design or the artwork, on the license plate?
Yeah, and the color, sometimes they'll switch them out. Yeah.
And that one is an actual artwork that Kansas used. And I believe it was at the time in 2005-ish. I will go back and look and confirm for our next episode.
Okay.
But I don't believe the sequence of letters and numbers are the correct kinds of sequence that Kansas used.
Oh, you mean like whether it's like letter, and then number type of thing?
Yes. Which I assume is something kind of like how every phone number on media is 555.
Right. I thought they did. I think they did a shout out. Like some of the letters stand for Kansas.
Like, it says like KAZ, and I can't remember what the number was.
Yeah, I thought that was like a little shout out to actual Kansas.
Maybe.
Yeah, interesting. I always look at license plates to be like, is it trying to tell us something?
Yeah.
It's every show, and that's just ridiculous. I'm like, what's it saying?
Yeah.
Who's it talking to?
But I thought it was a nice touch that they actually got a real.
Yeah, no, that is nice. It didn't
I assume they went to the like Kansas Department of Transportation and ordered like a customized one, with those numbers and letters and stuff. But
that is cool.
Yeah. It's just I've had that on my car, I think. That plate.
That is very cool.
And that was my last note of this episode.
My final note is, how does Sam get the swagger to get the keys from Dean to drive the Impala? He's like, I'm going to drive now. And Dean throws him the keys. Suddenly, since Sam, I mean, while he didn't actually kill the Wendigo, he did like save the family. He put his body between, the Wendigo and, the family. So he did save them. He did protect them. And so now he's got like the swagger. and says, well, I'm going to drive. Which, as much as we know about Dean now, we didn't know this watching it then. But again, just like Joey doesn't share food. It's like Dean doesn't let anybody drive the car. So I just thought that was interesting that Sam decides to like be all macho to Dean. Dean lets him, gives him the keys and lets him drive.
Well, this was a callback from earlier in the episode because it was like after Sam woke up from his nightmare that scared us.
He's like, do you want to drive?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, do you want to drive? And Sam was like, wait a minute, you never let people drive. What are you being so nice for?
Got it.
So this was a callback, I think, to, it's like, you know what? I think I will drive now.
Okay, see, I'm so glad I had this conversation with you. I had completely forgotten about that, and I was literally thinking about every episode after.
Oh, yeah,
where Dean doesn't let anybody drive, except under pure duress. But I'm gonna say, oh, this is terrible of me. I hate to say this. I don't want to end the episode on this. But as they're driving away, and it's just stock footage of the Impala driving.
Mm-hmm.
Sam is clearly in the passenger seat.
Oh, really? I didn't look.
Because it's the hair.
Yeah.
It's the shadow of the hair.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
that's funny.
I was like, that's totally Sam in the passenger seat.
Too funny.
Yeah, that's just me being
observant.
Yes, maybe overly.
No, not at all.
But it's just his shadow, Yeah. Point you can see it, but I was like,
not Dean.
Not Dean. Not Dean.
That's funny. And
remember when I was talking about the locks on the doors, the car locks, how they're like,
yes, they're long,
pokey. Yeah. They do change them out later. Okay. I don't know at what point, but I did notice that in later episodes, they're still like, they look more like a golf tee, with the round flat top.
Yeah.
So at least it's not like a needle that you could skewer your arm on. But
right, I did try and look this time for the locks, but then I just got distracted by
the actual
the
episode.
other things. Yeah.
Meanwhile, when dissecting each frame, Valerie found that the dust was not the same. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for tuning in this week.
Guys,
we will see you next week for Dead in the Water.
Dead Water sounds spooky.
It is spooky. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.